The great crystal dome of Nexus Prime sparkled like a jewel against the black of space. Inside, 12 different alien species sat around a massive circular table. Their voices filled the air with strange sounds, clicks, hisses, and electronic buzzes that somehow became words through the translation devices. Hyun sat in the back corner, almost hidden in the shadows. His simple black suit made him look like any other minor diplomat. He held a basic tablet in his hands, the kind that students used in school. While the aliens argued and shouted, he typed quietly, his fingers moving across the screen without making a sound. The humans spread like a disease. War Commander Thextor slammed his four-armed fist on the table. The Velkari warrior stood, nearly 3 meters tall, his red skin covered in battle scars. They build their mining stations in our sacred spaces. They patrol routes that belong to us for 1,000 years. The other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. The Zephyrian, representative, a creature that looked like a metal spider with too many legs, clicked its response. The hive mind agrees. Humans bring chaos where there should be order. They do not follow the old ways. They do not respect the ancient boundaries. Hyun looked up from his tablet just long enough to study Thextor's uniform. He noticed the medal that showed which battles the commander had fought. He saw the weapon at his side, the kind that could cut through steel. But most importantly, he saw the way Thextor moved, always facing his enemies directly, never looking behind him, never expecting attack from unexpected angles. The debate continued for hours. Each alien species took turns explaining why humans were dangerous. They showed pictures of human ships, talked about human weapons, and complained about human trade routes. They spoke as if humans were insects that needed to be stepped on. "Look at their technology," said the crystalline delegate, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "They still use chemical rockets in some areas. Their computers are barely faster than our children's toys. How can such primitives challenge us? More." Laughter filled the room. Hyun made another note on his tablet. The crystallines thought human computers were slow, but they didn't know about the quantum processors hidden in Earth's military systems. They saw only what humans wanted them to. "See?" The Aquatic Federation representative floated in his water-filled tank, speaking through bubbles that became words. "Our sensors show their largest warships carry maybe 50 fighters each. My people's smallest carrier holds 300. We could crush their entire fleet with one battle group." Hyun nodded slightly as if agreeing, but he was actually noting how the aquatics kept their carriers in tight formations. All their fighters launched from the same direction. If someone could get past their outer defenses, the carriers would be sitting targets. Hours passed. The aliens grew louder and more confident. They shared information about their own fleets, thinking no human could understand their technical details. They talked about weapon ranges, shield frequencies, and fuel consumption rates. They discussed which species would attack from which direction, how they would divide up human territory after the war. Thextor pulled up a holographic display of the Sol system. "See how they cluster their defenses around their home world? Classic primitive thinking. They protect what they love instead of controlling what they need. We will bypass their strong points and strike their weak colonies first." Agreed, buzzed, the insectoid collective queen. Humans think with their emotions. They will rush to save their civilians, leaving their important positions undefended. It is the mistake of all young species. Hyun's fingers never stopped moving on his tablet. Every detail, every boast, every tactical preference, he recorded it all. He learned that Velkari ships always attacked in straight lines because their culture valued courage over cleverness. He discovered that Zephyrian fleets could not function if their command ships were destroyed, because the hive mind needed constant connection. He noted that crystalline vessels had powerful shields but weak armor underneath. The session lasted 12 hours. As it ended, the Secretary General of the Galactic Council, a tall, thin being with too many eyes, called for the final vote. All in favor of giving humanity 30 standard days to withdraw from disputed territories. 12 hands, claws, tentacles, and other appendages rose into the air. The vote was unanimous. "And if they refuse," asked the Secretary General, "then we will remove them," Thextor said simply. "My fleet alone has enough firepower to glass their entire homeworld. With all 12 species working together, it will be over in days." The other aliens made sounds of agreement. They began discussing which worlds they would claim after humanity's defeat, which technologies they would study from human wreckage, which trade routes would open up for their use. Through all of this, no one asked Hyun for Earth's response. Finally, the Secretary General remembered the humans sitting in the corner. "Does Earth wish to make a statement?" All eyes turned to Hyun. He looked up from his tablet with a gentle smile. "Thank you for asking. I am only here to observe and learn. I have no authority to speak for my government. I will report what I have seen here today." The aliens laughed. Several made comments about how typical it was for humans to send someone with no real power. They saw Hyun's politeness as weakness, his quiet manner as fear. "Very well," said the Secretary General. "Earth has 30 days. After that, the combined fleets will take action." The meeting ended. Aliens filed out in groups, talking excitedly about their coming victory. They made plans for celebration dinners and discussed how to divide the spoils of war. Some mentioned that human slaves might be useful for mining operations. Hyun packed his tablet carefully into a plain briefcase. He nodded politely to any alien who looked his way. He shook hands with a few diplomats who bothered to notice him. Through it all, he maintained the same gentle smile that had fooled them for months. As he walked to his small, unremarkable transport ship, Hyun allowed himself one moment of satisfaction. The aliens had given him everything he needed to destroy them. They had shown him their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their arrogance. They thought they knew humans. They thought they understood how Earth would react to their ultimatum. They expected panic, desperate negotiations, maybe even surrender. They had no idea what was really coming. Hyun's ship lifted off quietly, just another minor diplomat heading home with bad news. Behind him, alien fleets began moving toward human space, confident in their overwhelming power. None of them noticed the small recording device Hyun had placed under the council table. None of them realized their private conversations after the meeting were being transmitted to a hidden relay station. They had been so focused on the threat they thought they understood that they never saw the real danger sitting quietly in the corner, taking notes. The transport ship landed at Pacific Fleet Command just as the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. Hyun walked through the security checkpoints with the same quiet manner he had shown at the Galactic Council. Guards who had seen him leave weeks ago barely looked up as he passed. To them, he was just another diplomat returning from a failed mission. But Admiral Yuna was waiting for him in the secure briefing room, along with her top officers. The moment Hyun entered, the atmosphere changed. These people knew who he really was and what he could do. "How bad is it?" Admiral Yuna asked, without ceremony. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had commanded Earth's space forces for 15 years, fighting pirates and raiders across human space. Hyun set his tablet on the table and activated the holographic display. Suddenly, the room was filled with detailed ship schematics, tactical formations, and personnel files. "They are sending everything they have, 12 full battle fleets, over 3,000 ships total." Commander Minho whistled softly. He was Admiral Yuna's tactical expert, a man who could calculate battle odds in his head faster than most computers. "That is 10 times our entire fleet. Even with our new ships, we cannot match that kind of firepower." "We do not need to match it," Hyun said calmly. "We need to understand it." He touched his tablet, and the display changed to show Velkari battle formations. Thextor commands the largest fleet. He has 800 ships arranged in traditional attack wings. They will come at us in straight lines, trying to overwhelm our defenses with direct assault. Lieutenant Hana leaned forward, studying the data. She was young for her rank, but she understood computer systems better than anyone else in the fleet. These formation patterns have not changed in centuries. They use the same tactics they learned fighting other aliens who think the same way they do. Exactly, Hyun nodded. They have never fought humans before. They do not understand how we think or how we fight. Look at this. The display showed Zephyrian fleet movements. The bug ships move like a single organism because they share one mind, but that mind depends on command vessels to coordinate the fleet. Admiral Yuna studied the formations with growing interest. If we take out the command ships, the rest of the fleet becomes confused. More than confused, Hyun replied. Without their guiding intelligence, individual Zephyrian ships cannot make decisions. They will drift helplessly until new orders arrive. For the next 6 hours, Hyun went through every alien fleet in detail. He showed how crystalline ships had powerful shields but weak spots where the shield generators connected. He explained how aquatic Federation vessels needed to return to their carriers regularly to refuel. He revealed that insectoid collective drones followed programmed attack patterns that could be predicted and countered. They shared all this information freely at the council meeting, Hyun explained. They were so confident in their victory that they discussed tactics in front of me. They treated me like furniture in the room. Commander Minho was already working out battle plans in his head. We can use their arrogance against them. If they expect us to fight like other aliens, they will not be ready for human tactics. What kind of tactics? Asked Admiral Yuna. Hyun smiled, the same gentle expression he had worn at the council meeting. The kind that wins wars, Admiral. Over. The next few days, Earth transformed. On the surface, it looked like a world preparing for defeat. News broadcasts showed families evacuating border colonies. Government officials made desperate appeals for peace. Stock markets crashed as investors panicked about the coming war. But beneath the surface, a different kind of preparation was taking place. Lieutenant Hana worked with her cyber warfare teams to create computer viruses designed specifically for alien systems. The viruses were hidden in normal trade transmissions and entertainment broadcasts. By the time the alien fleets arrived, their computer networks would already be infected. Commander Minho coordinated with ship captains across human space. Every vessel, from massive battleships to small patrol craft, received new orders. They were not to engage the enemy directly at first. Instead, they would lead the aliens deeper into human territory, making it look like retreat, but actually herding them into carefully prepared traps. Dr. Yunji, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, worked to modify human weapons systems. She had studied captured alien equipment for years, learning how their shields and armor worked. Now she designed weapons that could exploit those weaknesses. Captain Taman prepared his destroyer squadron for special operations behind enemy lines. His ships were equipped with new stealth technology that could fool even the most advanced alien sensors. They would strike without warning and disappear before the enemy could respond. Meanwhile, the alien fleets were gathering at the edge of human space. Thextor commanded the operation from his flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Crimson Blade. He had fought in dozens of battles across the galaxy, always winning through superior firepower and aggressive tactics. The humans have 30 days to surrender, he told his officers. I expect they will try to negotiate when they see our strength. If not, we will demonstrate why the Velkari Empire has never lost a war. The other alien commanders were equally confident. They had studied human military capabilities and found them lacking. Human ships were smaller, slower, and carried fewer weapons. Human technology seemed primitive compared to their own advanced systems. What they did not know was that everything they had studied was false. For decades, humans had been hiding their true military strength. The ships the aliens had observed were decoys. The weapons they had analyzed were outdated models. The computer systems they had examined were civilian-grade. The real human fleet was something entirely different. Hidden in asteroid fields and behind planetary shields were ships that incorporated technology from a dozen alien species. Humans had been trading with galaxy civilizations for over a century, always presenting themselves as harmless merchants and curious scientists. Every technology they had encountered, they had studied, improved, and adapted for their own use. But their greatest advantage was not technology. It was the human ability to think differently, to find solutions that others could not imagine. As the alien deadline approached, Admiral Yuna stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the sensor displays. The enemy fleets were taking their positions exactly as Hyun had predicted. They moved with the confidence of predators approaching helpless prey. All ships report ready, Admiral, Commander Minho announced. Cyber warfare systems online, Lieutenant Hana added. Stealth squadrons in position, Captain Taman confirmed from his destroyer. Admiral Yuna looked at Hyun, who sat quietly in the observer's chair, still typing on his tablet. Are you certain this will work? Hyun looked up with that same gentle smile. Admiral, they have been underestimating humans for so long, they have forgotten we exist. That mistake will cost them everything. Outside, alien fleets, numbering in the thousands, moved toward Earth, ready to crush human civilization once and for all. Their commanders dreamed of easy victory and rich rewards. They had no idea they were flying into the most carefully planned ambush in galactic history. The trap was set. Now all that remained was to spring it. The alien armada dropped out of hyperspace at exactly 0600 Earth Standard Time. 12 massive fleets appeared in perfect formation around the outer edge of the Sol system, their ships blotting out the stars like a metal storm cloud. War Commander Thextor stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. Phase 1 complete, he announced to his officers. All fleets report successful arrival. Human defensive positions detected as expected. The display showed human ships scattered throughout the system in what looked like desperate defensive formations. Small groups of vessels huddled around space stations and orbital platforms, exactly as alien intelligence had predicted. The humans appeared to be protecting their infrastructure rather than mounting an organized defense. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission from Earth," his communications officer reported. "Put it through," Thextor ordered. The main screen showed a human admiral, an older woman with gray hair. She looked tired and defeated. "This is Admiral Yuna of Earth Command. We request 24 hours to consider evacuation of civilian populations. Please, we need time to save innocent lives." Thextor laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You had 30 days to evacuate. Time is up." He cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. "Begin the attack. All fleets, advance to optimal firing range." The alien armada moved forward like a giant metal wave. 3,000 ships accelerated toward the inner system, their weapons charging for the first devastating salvo. Everything proceeded exactly according to plan. What Thextor did not see was Lieutenant Hana, sitting in a hidden command bunker deep beneath Earth's surface. Her fingers danced across multiple keyboards as she activated cyber warfare protocols that had been months in the making. "Initiating Phase 1 infiltration," she reported to Admiral Yuna. "Viral payloads are active in 70% of their fleet networks." The viruses had been planted weeks ago, hidden in routine trade transmissions and entertainment broadcasts. They lay dormant in alien computer systems, waiting for activation. Now they began their work, introducing tiny errors into navigation systems, weapon targeting computers, and communication networks. The errors were so small that alien crews did not notice them at first. A targeting system would aim a fraction of a degree off course. A navigation computer would calculate distance with a tiny mistake. Communication channels would develop slight delays that gradually increased. In space, tiny mistakes became big problems very quickly. The first sign of trouble came when the Velkari advance wing began drifting out of formation. Their ships, following navigation computers infected with Hana's viruses, started moving in slightly different directions. The formation that had looked perfect from a distance began to spread apart. "Navigation error in the 3rd Squadron," reported Thextor's tactical officer. "They are correcting course now." But the corrections only made things worse. The more the alien crews tried to fix their navigation, the more confused their systems became. Ships that should have been flying in tight formation found themselves kilometers apart, unable to provide mutual support. Meanwhile, the human ships were retreating deeper into the system. At least that was what it looked like to the aliens. In reality, every human vessel was following a carefully planned route designed by Commander Minho. They led the alien fleets through specific areas of space, past hidden installations, and through sensor shadow zones. Captain Taman watched from his concealed position behind one of Jupiter's moons. His destroyer squadron had been hiding there for days, their stealth systems making them invisible to alien sensors. Around him, dozens of other human ships waited in similar hiding places throughout the system. "Enemy formations are spreading out exactly as predicted," he reported to Admiral Yuna. "They are following our retreat path into the engagement zone." The engagement zone was a carefully chosen area of space near Jupiter where human engineers had been working for months. What looked like ordinary mining platforms and research stations were actually sophisticated weapon systems and sensor arrays. The aliens, focused on chasing what they thought were fleeing human ships, paid no attention to the industrial equipment scattered throughout the area. Thextor was growing frustrated with his fleet's performance. The tight formations he prided himself on were falling apart, and his crews seemed unable to maintain proper spacing. Worse, The human ships kept slipping away just as his forces came within weapons range. "Increase speed," he ordered. "We will overwhelm them with a direct assault." The alien fleets accelerated, pushing their engines harder to catch the retreating humans. This played perfectly into Hyun's strategy. The faster they moved, the less time they had to notice the traps being prepared around them. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, "I am detecting some unusual energy readings from those mining platforms." Thextor glanced at the display. "Industrial equipment. Ignore it and focus on the enemy ships." It was exactly the kind of mistake Hyun had predicted. The aliens were so focused on what they expected to see that they ignored what was actually there. They saw mining equipment because that was what they expected humans to have in space. They never considered that humans might disguise weapons as industrial machinery. The trap was almost ready. Human ships had led the alien fleets deep into the kill zone, and the scattered formations made perfect targets. All that remained was to spring it. Admiral Yuna stood on her command bridge, watching the tactical display as thousands of enemy ships moved into position. Her own fleet was outnumbered 15-1, but she felt confident for the first time. "Since the war began, all hidden installations report ready," Commander Minho announced. "Cyber warfare viruses are fully activated," Lieutenant Hana added. "Enemy fleet coordination is down to 60% efficiency." "Stealth squadrons are in attack position," Captain Taman confirmed. Hyun looked up from his tablet with that familiar, gentle smile. "Admiral, they have made every mistake I expected them to make. They are exactly where we want them, moving exactly as we predicted." Admiral Yuna nodded. "Execute Phase 2. Across the Jupiter engagement zone, dozens of hidden installations suddenly revealed their true nature. Mining platforms unfolded to reveal massive electromagnetic pulse generators. Research stations dropped their camouflage to show particle beam arrays. What had looked like civilian infrastructure transformed into the largest weapons platform in human history. The first EMP pulse hit the alien formations like an invisible hammer. Thousands of ships suddenly lost power as their electrical systems overloaded. The viruses in their computers chose that exact moment to activate their most destructive programs, turning ship systems against their own crews. In the chaos that followed, human warships decloaked throughout the enemy formation. These were not the small, primitive vessels the aliens expected. They were sleek predators built with the best technology humanity had developed, incorporating improvements from dozens of alien designs. Captain Taman led the first attack wave, his destroyers striking like ghosts in the night. They appeared from nowhere, fired devastating salvos into crippled enemy ships, and vanished again before return fire could find them. The aliens, trained to fight honorable battles between visible opponents, had no defense against enemies that refused to stand and fight. The Zephyrian hive mind suffered the worst casualties. Hana's viruses had been specifically designed to exploit their shared consciousness. Feedback loops in their communication network sent destructive signals racing through the hive mind, burning out queen nodes and leaving entire squadrons brain dead. In space. "Impossible!" Thextor roared as his flagship shook from human weapons fire. "These are primitives. They cannot have technology like this." But the evidence was all around him. Human ships moved with impossible grace, their stealth systems making them appear and disappear like phantoms. Their weapons cut through alien armor as if it were paper. Most shocking of all, they seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum damage. That was because they did know. Hyun's intelligence gathering had revealed every weakness in every alien design. Human weapons were specifically tuned to exploit shield frequencies, armor compositions, and structural weak points that the aliens thought were secret. Within 6 hours, the mighty alien armada was in full retreat. Over 800 ships had been destroyed or disabled. The survivors fled in disorder, their formations shattered, their communications disrupted, their confidence broken. Thextor's flagship limped away from the battle, its engines barely functional. The proud warrior who had boasted of easy victory now faced the humiliation of devastating defeat. Around him, the wreckage of alien ships drifted in silent testament to human ingenuity. "How?" he whispered to himself. "How did primitives do this to us?" He would never understand that the answer had been sitting quietly in the corner of the council chamber, taking notes while aliens planned their own destruction. Hyun had given humanity everything it needed to turn overwhelming odds into crushing victory. The galaxy was about to learn that underestimating humans was the last mistake anyone would ever make. The alien retreat turned into something worse than defeat. It became a nightmare. War Commander Thextor thought the worst was over when his damaged flagship escaped the Jupiter engagement zone. He had lost more than half his fleet, but the survivors could regroup and plan a new attack. That was how wars worked in his experience. You fought, you lost or won, and then you prepared for the next battle. He had never fought humans before. The pursuit began 3 days later, just as alien crews were starting to repair their damaged ships. Human vessels appeared throughout 3 star systems simultaneously, striking at scattered alien groups with surgical precision. These were not the desperate defensive actions Thextor expected. These were coordinated hunter-killer operations designed to eliminate every surviving alien ship. Captain Taman commanded one of these hunter groups from his destroyer Silent Wind. His squadron had been hunting Valkyrie cruisers for 2 days, using stealth technology that seemed impossible to detect. They would appear from empty space, destroy their target in minutes, and vanish again before help could arrive. "Contact bearing 37 Mark 8, his sensor officer reported. "Single Valkyrie heavy cruiser proceeding at half impulse." Taman studied the tactical display. The enemy ship was running dark, trying to hide from human sensors by reducing its power output. It might have worked against other alien species, but human sensor technology had evolved far beyond what the galaxy expected. "Phase cloak engaged," his helmsman announced. "We are invisible to their sensors." The Silent Wind moved like a ghost through space, its experimental phase cloak bending light and energy around the ship's hull. To alien sensors, there was nothing but empty vacuum. Only the most advanced human detectors could track a phase-cloaked vessel. Taman waited until his ship was directly behind the alien cruiser in its sensor blind spot. "Lock weapons on their engine core. 1 shot, clean kill." The human torpedo struck before the Valkyrie crew knew they were under attack. The cruiser's fusion reactor went critical, lighting up space with a brief star. By the time the explosion faded, the Silent Wind was already gone, hunting for its next target. This scene repeated across dozens of star systems. Human ships appeared everywhere, striking with perfect knowledge of alien weaknesses. They knew which ships carried the most important personnel. They knew which vessels held critical supplies. They knew exactly where to hit to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. The aliens began to understand that they were not just losing a war. They were being systematically hunted to extinction. But the worst part was not the attacks themselves. It was the way their own technology turned against them. Dr. Yunji had spent months preparing for this phase of the operation. Every piece of alien technology that humans had encountered over the decades, every trade agreement and technology exchange had given her opportunities to plant hidden programs in alien computer systems. Now those programs activated. On a crystalline battleship, the environmental controls suddenly reversed, flooding the ship with toxic gases from the engineering section. The crew evacuated to emergency shelters, only to discover that the life support systems there had also been compromised. An aquatic Federation carrier found its launch bays sealed shut by their own security protocols. Hundreds of fighters sat, trapped in their docking bays while the carrier drifted helplessly, unable to defend itself or retreat. A Zephyrian command ship watched in horror as its own weapons systems locked onto friendly vessels. The hive mind tried to override the targeting computers, but the human viruses had taken root too deeply. The ship fired on its own escorts before its crew could shut down the weapons. Across the alien fleets, the same story repeated. Ships that had never seen human boarding parties found their systems corrupted by programs that had been hiding in their computers for months or even years. Every software update, every communication protocol, every entertainment broadcast from human space had carried hidden payloads. The galaxy's communication networks, built over centuries of cooperation and trade, became weapons in human hands. Dexter realized the true scope of the disaster when his own flagship began turning against him. The ship's navigation system started plotting courses into the nearest star. The artificial gravity fluctuated randomly, throwing crew members against bulkheads. Even the food replicators began producing toxic compounds instead of nutrients. Cut all external communication links, he ordered desperately. Isolate our computer core from any outside signals. But it was too late. The human programs were already inside his systems, spreading through the ship's networks like a digital plague. They had been there for months, possibly years, waiting for activation. His communications officer looked up with terror in his eyes. "Sir, I am receiving status reports from the fleet. Every ship is experiencing similar malfunctions. Our entire computer infrastructure is compromised." Thextor felt something he had never experienced in decades of warfare. Helplessness. The E. Humans had not just defeated his fleets in battle. They had turned the very technology his civilization depended on into a weapon against him. Meanwhile, Admiral Yuna coordinated the human offensive from her command center. Status reports flowed in from across known space as her forces systematically dismantled what remained of the alien armada. "Sector 7 clear," Commander Minho reported. "All insectoid collective ships in that region have been neutralized. Cyber warfare protocols are exceeding expectations," Lieutenant Hana added. "Alien computer systems are shutting down faster than their crews can compensate." But the most important reports came from Hyun, who had moved his operations to a new level. He was no longer just gathering intelligence or planning battles. He was conducting psychological warfare on a galactic scale. "The alien governments are beginning to panic," he informed Admiral Yuna. "They are receiving reports of total fleet losses from every front. Several species have already withdrawn their remaining ships from the combat zone." This was the true genius of the human strategy. They had not just planned to win battles. They had planned to break their enemy's will to fight. The Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session, but this time the atmosphere was very different. Representatives who had voted confidently for war now sat in terrified silence. The massive fleets they had sent to crush humanity were simply gone, destroyed or scattered by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. The Secretary General called the session to order with a trembling voice. "We have received preliminary reports from our military commanders. The situation is difficult." That was an understatement. Of the 3,000 ships that had attacked human space, fewer than 500 remained operational. Most of those were damaged and in full retreat. The combined military might of 12 advanced civilizations had been shattered by a species they had considered barely worthy of notice. "How is this possible?" demanded the crystalline representative. "Our intelligence showed that humans had inferior technology. Their ships were smaller, their weapons weaker, their computers slower." "Everything we thought we knew about human capabilities was false," admitted the Aquatic Federation delegate. "They allowed us to see only what they wanted us to see. While we prepared for war, they prepared to destroy us." In the corner of the chamber where Hyun had once sat unnoticed, a new human representative now occupied the observer's seat. This was Ambassador Sora, a woman who commanded attention simply by being there. When she spoke, the entire council fell silent. "The Terran Federation is prepared to discuss terms," she said calmly. "But first, you must understand that the old order is finished. The galaxy has changed. You can adapt to that change, or you can follow your fleets into extinction." The threat was clear, and so was the reality behind it. Humanity had not just won a war. They had revolutionized warfare itself. Every assumption about military power, every traditional tactic, every technological advantage the older species had enjoyed was now meaningless. The quiet human they had overlooked had been preparing for this moment for years. While alien leaders boasted and threatened, humans had studied and planned. They had turned their enemies' strengths into weaknesses and their own apparent limitations into devastating surprises. Now the hunters had become the hunted, and there was nowhere left to run. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to underestimate humanity. 6 months after the failed invasion, Thextor sat in a small cell on a prison transport, heading back to Velkari space. The once proud war commander wore simple gray clothes instead of his decorated uniform. His 4 arms, which had once commanded fleets across the galaxy, now hung limp at his sides. He was not a prisoner of war in the traditional sense. The humans had offered him and all other surviving alien officers complete freedom if they agreed to one simple condition. They had to write detailed reports about what had happened during the war. These reports would be distributed throughout the galaxy as educational material. Thextor had refused at first. A warrior did not help his enemies spread propaganda. But after weeks of watching human diplomats negotiate with alien governments, after seeing how completely the balance of power had shifted, he finally understood what he was really being asked to do. He was being asked to warn the galaxy. Personal log, former War Commander Thextor, day 180 since the defeat. He spoke into the recording device. I have been asked to explain how 12 advanced civilizations lost a war to a species we considered primitive. The answer is simple. We never understood who we were fighting. The transport ship passed through a human checkpoint on its way to the border. Thextor watched through his small window as human patrol ships scanned the vessel. These ships looked nothing like the crude fighters the aliens had expected to face. They were sleek, deadly predators that moved through space with an elegance that no alien technology could match. The humans we observed before the war were actors playing a role. Thextor continued his report. Every ship we studied, every weapon we analyzed, every computer system we examined was deliberately designed to appear inferior. They wanted us to underestimate them, and we did exactly what they expected. The galaxy had learned this lesson in the hardest possible way. Human. Technology was not primitive at all. It was simply different, designed by minds that thought in ways alien species had never encountered. Where other races built massive, obvious displays of power, humans created subtle, efficient systems that achieved the same goals with a fraction of the resources. More importantly, humans had spent centuries learning from every species they encountered. Every trade agreement, every cultural exchange, every diplomatic mission had given them opportunities to study alien technology and adapt it for their own use. By the time the war began, human ships incorporated improvements from dozens of different civilizations, but their greatest advantage was not technology. It was psychology. On Earth, Hyun had been promoted to ambassador plenipotentiary, the highest diplomatic rank in human service. He now served as humanity's primary representative to the Galactic Council, but he had not changed at all. He still spoke quietly, still took careful notes, still smiled gently when others underestimated him.